The next menu that we'll be discussing is the configuration menu. Go ahead and press F2 to enter it. The configuration menu lets you customize the software for your particular application. To see what your current configuration is, go ahead and highlight Configuration Status and press the Enter key. If you selected Factory Default when the instrument began, this is the configuration that you should have loaded in your window right now. Within the factory default configuration, the window is blank. And the reason for that is everything that appears in the window is what's different from the factory default. When you first get your instrument from Lycor, there's a clear chamber that's installed on the system, and it's expecting that the software is set up for that clear chamber. If, however, you want to use other chambers or you would like to customize the software, you can change that within this menu, or you can change it within various other menus located in the configuration menu. Go ahead and press Quit. Because I have a light source, I would like to go down to the installation menu and install the appropriate software for that menu. So arrow down to where it says Installation Menu and press Enter. And the very first item in the list that appears is 6400 O2 or O2B LED source, and this is the chamber that I would like to install. Go ahead and highlight it and press Enter. If you purchase this 6400 with a light source, the light source should appear in this list. It will have the calibration constant for that light source as well as the serial number. And this particular instrument has been used with a number of different light sources, so we see a number of them appearing in this list. As long as you see the one that you would like to install in the list, go ahead and press Y. And then it will ask you if you want to build a configuration file for that light source. Go ahead and say yes or Y. Next, it will ask you what chamber bottom you will be using with this configuration. We do manufacture both an opaque bottom and a clear bottom. The opaque bottom will have the leaf temperature thermocouple in it, and you cannot see through it. We also manufacture a clear bottom, but for this particular chamber, go ahead and select opaque bottom. Next, it will ask which light source you'll be using with this configuration. Go ahead and highlight one of the light sources that you plan to use and press Enter. It will then ask you how you plan to measure leaf temperature. If you are measuring plant material that will be easy to make good contact with the leaf temperature thermocouple, then you can say measured. If you are working with plant material that is fine or has very small leaves that would be difficult to make good contact with the leaf temperature thermocouple, then it would be better to use the energy balance approximation. For us, we'll be working with broadleaves, so we can go ahead and say M for measured. The next question wants to know if we are measuring needles or broadleaves, and this question determines how boundary layer conductance is set. If we are working with needles, boundary layer conductance is set to a high constant value. If we are using broadleaves, boundary layer conductance is calculated from a lookup table based on fan speed and leaf area. For us, we'll be working with broadleaves, so go ahead and press B. In the end, it will show you what the configuration looks like. It knows I'm using my red-blue light source chamber, which has an area of 6 square centimeters, and it shows that I will be using the light source and what that light source serial number is. All of this is correct, so go ahead and say Save. And this gives you an opportunity to name the configuration. So the next time you turn on your instrument, this will be an option in your list, and you'll be allowed to select it. If you would like to go ahead and keep the default name, that would be fine. If you'd like to change it, you can do so at this time. Once you have named the configuration, it returns you to that menu. At this point, you can say Quit. If you have a number of chambers to install, you can go ahead and generate additional configurations for those chambers. If you would like to continue on with the tutorial, though, you can go ahead and say No. Now, after you have created a new configuration, in order to use that configuration, we need to go to the Reset menu and choose Reset to User Configuration. And we'll go ahead and do that now. Escape out of the installation menu and go to the very bottom of the configuration menu and you'll see Reset menu. Highlight that and press Enter. At the end of that menu, you'll see where there's a possibility for Reset to User Configuration. Highlight that and press Enter. Now you should see the option we just installed, two by 3 opaque LED. Go ahead and highlight that and press Enter. You'll notice it goes through a number of calculations on the screen before it eventually returns you to the Reset menu. And what it's doing is actually going through and compiling the code for this configuration. So everything that appears in the compute list, things such as photosynthesis, transpiration, all of those items are compiled every time you choose a new configuration. So if you've made changes in any of those things, they will take effect when you load that particular configuration. Alright, we are finished with the Reset menu. You can go ahead and escape out of that particular menu. And let's discuss a few more items in the configuration menu. So we've gone through the installation menu, and again, if you have additional chambers to install, you can go there and simply select them from the list and follow the on-screen prompts. If you would like to go and just reset to a different light source without actually changing your configuration, you can do that in this menu. If you would like to change what is being logged, you can go and do that in the logging control. There are a number of items that we put in the log list by default, and many of those items are needed if you want to recompute your data. But if you're trying to save space and memory, you can go into that list and edit it and delete items or add to them as you wish. Prompt control allows you to set up user-defined questions that are asked when you press the log button. And what they appear as separate columns in your data file. So let's go through an example at this time. Common prompts might be things like plant number, leaf number, replication number, species, things of that nature that specify your data and relate the information that you're collecting to your experimental design. So let's just make up an example prompt called plant number. Once you're in the screen, if you have not defined prompts before, you should come up with the default prompt list, and it should say that there are none defined. To edit it, we need to go into the prompt editor. Press F1. Once you're in the prompt editor, you can press Insert, and a list will come up of possible prompts that you can add to the list. Go ahead and go down and choose -104, which the default label is auxiliary N1. highlight that and press Enter. And we're going to change that label. Auxiliary N1 does not mean a whole lot to us. We want to change it to whatever question we would like to be asked when we actually press the log button. And I'm going to enter plant number. And that's the only one I'm going to add to the list, so I can just say F5 OK. Do I want to store changes? Yes. And I'd like to draw your attention to the top of the screen. If you'll notice, we are creating a new prompt list, which is contained in the User Configurations folder. And now it's giving me an opportunity to name this prompt list. And I like to use names that define what's being added to the list. So I'm just going to call this plant number. And the beauty of that is if you wanted to use the same prompt list with other configurations, you could do so without having to recreate the prompt list. When you return to the prompt control screen, you'll notice a triangle next to the prompts. And if you look at the bottom of the box, it tells you the reason for that is it's not in our log list. And if you remember earlier, I said if you wanted to edit what things are actually logged when you press the log button, you need to do that in logging control. Well, from this menu, there's actually a shortcut where we can simply press F4 to update that log list. And what we want to do is add this new prompt, which is plant number, to our list, and then we want to save our log list as a completely new file. So go ahead and press F1. It will ask you where you want to insert your prompt, and I think it's a good idea to put it at the beginning of the file so it's one of the first columns that you see when you download your data. I'm going to put it right after F time. Now it's asking me what I want to call my new log list, and I'm simply going to call it standard output plus plant number. So I know that really it's the same thing as the default settings, only it has the addition of my prompt. After you've added it to your log list, it will return you to the prompt control screen. And at this point, you can say quit. And we are finished setting up our prompts. Now, to illustrate how prompts work, I will go through that when we go into the new measurements portion of this introduction. For now, the only other menu to discuss is the compute list menu. And that menu allows you to edit computations that are being done, computations like photosynthesis and transpiration. They can be edited as you see fit and for your particular application. For instance, if you wanted photosynthesis in terms of micrograms per gram of dry matter, you could go into the compute list and change how we're computing that value. There are certain rules that you need to follow when you edit the compute list and if you were to add new computations. And most of that is covered in Book 4 of the manual. Okay, we are finished with the configuration menu, so we can press Escape.